All right. Good morning, everybody. Good morning. We are live. Yep. That says we're live. Okay. So, yeah. It's Firearms Friday. This morning, we're going to talk about Virginia Democrats advancing bills to ban all the guns. Because it's Firearms Friday, we're going to talk about that a little bit. And, it's first, let me tell you about why we're going to have a short show this morning, because we are going to have a short show this morning. Earlier, I streamed a couple hours of just playing Diablo badly because, wow. I was, tomorrow is the last day to get the hours in, and I don't want to be doing it at the last minute. Last summer, we had 1 month where, the 31st was on Saturday, and we needed like an hour and a half, and we ended up doing a 3.5 hour, or no, it was just a hair under 3 hours, right? We ended with 15 minutes to midnight, and I'm sitting here for the last 15 minutes hitting the refresh button. Oh, please count those last three up. Please count it. So didn't want to end up there, but this morning I got to make it a short show because y'all, tell you just a little bit of a story. I've got this gig. I've got this contract where, or a gig with a contractor where they offer me contracts and I don't have to accept them. I say, yeah, I want to do that work. I'll go do that work and make some money. Or I don't like that one. And more often than not, unless I've just got something else going on that day, when I refuse a contract, it's because it's not enough money. I made a mistake, y'all. They offered me 4 contracts over today and tomorrow, all in South Carolina, and not just like barely on the border, right? The first one I'm going to do today is just a hair in. It's only about 65 miles away. I'll just barely nip into South Carolina. It'll only take me an hour and a half to get there this morning. But then the next one is in Travelers Rest, which is another hour and a half into the state. And then tomorrow morning, my first one is on the other, is still in South Carolina, but like an hour. And I said, okay, you know what? I don't want to do it. It's too far. I'm not interested in all that driving. But instead of saying that, I said, no, I need more money. I need twice as much for this one. I need twice as much for this one. And I need 2.5 times as much for this one as you're offering. I mean, I demanded a ridiculous amount of money, hoping that they would say no dice. They agreed to pay me twice as much money for each of the contracts, except for one. So now I guess I'm getting a hotel room in South Carolina tonight. Because my other option is to drive 3 hours home tonight and then drive 3.5 hours back out. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to sleep in South Carolina, drive an hour tomorrow morning, and then drive 2 hours home. That'll work out better. But Jesus. And Patrick, yeah, so they're trying to get me caught in the snowstorm. Exactly. We'll see what happens. I may, there's a reasonable chance that I get caught out tomorrow morning. I get up and go to check out of the hotel room. If it's snowing, I'm not climbing on a roof and I'm not flying a drone in the snow. I'll just say, y'all got to reschedule these people. That ain't hard. And you still have to pay me for my driving. Anyway, I know that's all just fun personal anecdotes. Sergeant Major says sleep in the car. I would if it weren't supposed to be so cold. If the weather report didn't look the way it does, I would, let's be real. Part of the reason I own a luxury leather interior kind of high-end SUV is because I do a lot of driving and I wanted something that I could sleep in comfortably. But nah, not if it's going to be in the teens. No, thank you. So let's talk about this. That's got to go. And there we go. Why don't I have solar panels on my car? Because I have a sunroof. Or a moon roof, I think it's called. And actually, Dad, it's funny you mentioned that. Yeah, I've got the moon roof, and honestly, one thing I'm looking forward to, maybe later in the summer, is taking a series of several contracts like that, where I'm gonna sleep in the field, as it were. I'll put an air mattress in the back of the truck, and lay on my back and look up, and just stare at the stars through the moonroof as I doze off. Patrick says Traveler's Rest is calling for 20-mile-an-hour winds and 1 to 3 inches of snow. Is that today or tomorrow, Patrick? Because that is a good point. So anyway, Virginia Democrats advance bill banning sale of assault-style weapons. Democrats in the Virginia. Now this from the Washington Examiner. This headline is misleading. Okay, this headline is misleading. Santa Steve, the moonroof is only for mooning if you intend to offend some aircraft, because it's up. And I don't bend that way. Maybe 20 years ago that would have been hilarious, but it is no longer an option. Democrats in the Virginia General Assembly on Monday advanced legislation that would fundamentally alter their state's firearm laws by outlawing the future sale and transfer of assault-style firearms in the Commonwealth. Okay. Quick, obligatory, something I've said before, and I'll say 1,000 times again, because everybody needs to understand this. Everybody needs to understand this. The First Amendment says the Congress shall make no law. Abridging freedom of speech, practice religion, press, assembly, petition the government, right? The Congress shall make no law, which is to say that the federal government, the government, is forbidden to interfere with your speech, your worship, your petitions, your assembly, your exercise of the press. The Second Amendment has no such caveat. The Second Amendment does not begin with the words, the Congress shall make no law. The Second Amendment begins with the words, being necessary, a well-regulated militia, which, in the estimation of our forebears, meant the entire body of able-bodied, military fighting age males. That is the militia, historically. When the Founding Fathers said a well-regulated militia, the expectation was that if you are a grown man, which in their estimation meant somewhere between 15 and 60, of able body, that because it is your duty to be prepared to defend your home from wild animals, from marauders, from Indians. Let's be real. That was a problem. That was a problem worth consideration at the time as well. In fact, in where I live, I constantly have to defend my home from Indians. Right? They get the crayons out and draw on the walls and hang shit up where they're not supposed to, and they leave their fucking dirty underwear next to the shower. Anyway, some of you will appreciate that joke more than others. Well-regulated militia. The expectation is that you're a grown-ass man, you own a firearm, you maintain your equipment, you train, practice so that you are skilled with your equipment. And frankly, at the time of the writing, we were less concerned about people training to be skilled with the equipment because most men were making a habit of using the firearm frequently to hunt. And if you can shoot a deer, you can shoot a dude. I don't know if you've ever shot at men or deer, but I can tell you this: one of them is easier to hit because they're slow. Anyway, being necessary to the security of a free state. That's why it is your duty. Especially if you live out in the wilderness, if you're out on the frontier, advancing the cause to get to the other coast. Your home is always in danger, is always in peril. Again, wild animals, Indians, marauders, right? All kind of stuff. And it is your responsibility as a man to be prepared for that. Yes, part of the calculation is we just overthrew a tyrannical government. We don't ever want to go back to that. But more importantly, what about foreign invasion? And we've all heard the old anachronistic aphorism that you've woken the sleeping giant. There's a gun behind every blade of grass. Yeah. Yeah. Right? If you've never been in a firefight, let me tell you something. It's worth owning a few. When you're trying to hold a solid position, it's worth owning more than one firearm because switching weapons is faster than reloading. I can reload real fast, but dropping the M4 to grab the Maudeuce is faster than switching the magazine. Okay? I've tried. And then it finishes, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Right? That right there. The right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. Now, the First Amendment says that the Congress shall make no law. The government is explicitly the federal government, right? The organization of the several sovereign states who agreed to enter into a compact of mutual cooperation for mutual benefits agreed that the entity created by that relationship would be denied the authority to police speech, restrict worship, establish official churches, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. In theory, under that language, individual states could have profanity laws, blasphemy laws. They could establish an official church, right? Alabama could be the Baptist state of Alabama. Georgia could become the Episcopalian state of Georgia, right? New York could become Israel. And that would all be, one could make a reasonable argument that would be tolerable under the language of the First Amendment. And then the 10th Amendment tells us that all those authorities and powers which are not explicitly enumerated and ceded thereby to the federal government are retained to the states and to the people thereof, right? That's where so the Congress shall make no law. And if we didn't tell you can do it, then it's an authority that we're retaining for ourselves. But the Second Amendment does not detail a specific entity from whom that power is retained. The Second Amendment was an agreement between those signatories to the amendment that no one in any capacity of any sort whatsoever shall ever within the lawful due course of governance in these United States or any subordinate subsidiary or jurisdiction thereunder shall ever have the authority in any capacity to create law which is related to or adjacent to, the word being infringe, to place nearby, right? Like the tassels on your jacket, thou shalt not put tassels on my guns. Every signatory to any gun-related law is in violation of the Constitution, is a criminal who belongs at the minimum behind bars in perpetuity. I am a firm believer that the violation of the Constitution by any government agent should carry absolutely no less than a full life sentence. And I would prefer capital punishment in all those cases. If I had my way, the moment you sign a law that mentions guns, you die. Because what you are doing when you put your John Hancock on that piece of legislation is you are making it a point to go out of your way to make me less safe. You are threatening my wife and children. You are threatening my property. You are threatening my life and liberty. That is what happens every time, every single time without exception. A law mentions guns and a person puts their name to it. That person belongs in front of a firing squad or at the end of a rope. Due process, sure. Oh, you put your name on the document. Well, due process. 3-3. Right? 3-3. Anybody in the chat, what is 3-3? I'm gonna throw that one out there and see if anybody in the chat comes back with the correct answer. What is 3-3? What am I talking about when I say 3-3 in the context of a conversation about constitutional liberty and authority? So, little anecdote before I get back into the article, moderately related. So my little boy was getting a little shaggy. Couldn't quite see where he was going. His hair was getting in his eyes. So yesterday this is something that me and my boy look forward to a couple times a month. I took him for a haircut and a cheeseburger, right? So we went out for, we went and got our hairs cut. See, I got my beard cleaned and trimmed up. Yeah. Nice and tidy. Got my, probably had some split ends trimmed up and got my neck shaved. Little man got his Sheldon haircut. And then we went for cheeseburger and went to, if you guys are in the area, Sergeant Major, by the way, the Pickle Barrel makes a pretty damn good cheeseburger. And they have these battered French fries that are probably the worst thing you could put in your face. And they're so good. They are so good. Anyway, Pit Danny's known me long enough. He's probably seen me with a high and tight and a clean shave or at least a tight goatee. So it's been about 10 years since I wore that look, but yeah. And so anyway, we're sitting there and little man asked me a question and I answered him. It's political. There was a joke that somebody had just told, and he asked me about it, and I said it's political. You probably wouldn't get it, and I felt a little bad about how dismissive that comment was. So I said, okay, let me clarify that. When I say it's political, you probably wouldn't get it because he's 10, right? I don't mean to downplay your intelligence. What I mean is, because it's political, in order to understand the joke and be amused by the humor of it, you would have to have a very broad understanding of a lot of current events that you simply are not tracking on, right? Like my kids know broadly that there's stuff going on around illegal immigration and that there's some violence going on as a result of nut jobs who were defensive of hostile foreign invaders. But they're not sitting there watching the Alex Pretty suicide by cop videos on loop, right? They're not watching podcasts or reading think pieces on the malformed murderous intent of Renee Good and how she got herself killed through her own psychotic activities, right? So there's, some jokes require a lot of context, right? Like when Patrick types in all caps in the chat because I'm wearing a t-shirt with crabs and guns on it, and Patrick types, "Do not kowtow." There's maybe 3 other people in the chat that are going to get that joke. And it's because you haven't read 7 novels in a relatively obscure sci-fi fantasy series. Cool. But we started there, and I said, and I looked at him and said, okay, you know what? It's what does political mean, Little Battle? What do you think I mean? What do you think the word political means? And y'all, that is an unfair question to ask a 10-year-old. And frankly, it's an unfair question to ask many people, even adults, because the word political is a big word. It encompasses a lot. Now, broadly speaking, you can give it the kind of tight definition of saying those things which are related to the pursuit and acquisition of authority and power. Right? But that covers a lot of shit. When you say something is just political, you're wrong. It is never the case that a thing is just political. But if you're somebody who has kind of incorporated, grokked the meaning of the idea of politicality, then when you hear somebody say that maneuver was merely political, was just political, you understand that what they're really doing is assigning a negative intent to the actor responsible for the activity, not that a particular action has no purpose other than political achievement. That, in fact, what you're suggesting is that the political motivation of the motivated actor is a negative motivation or an insincere motivation, right? There you go. Jesus. Cyver, I'm going to change your mind. The book on Renee Good's nightstand was probably not Morning Glory Milking Farm because she was a lesbian. That's the best rebuttal I can give you to that. Of course, who knows? Maybe the psycho bitch that was with her was just her beard. Anyway, so Michael and I went down the list, and I asked him one by one, what is this amendment? What does this amendment cover? What does this amendment cover? The only ones he got, by the way, he knew the Second Amendment and he knew the Fourth Amendment. So I was pretty proud of him with that. So we spent some time on the first and the second, and I hit him with the third. I was like, this one's fun. Most adults will miss this one. What's the Third Amendment, right? And that's your protection against having soldiers bivouacked in your private property, and that's just one of those things that we don't think about anymore, because it is important that we have that right guaranteed, but it's kind of a non-issue in modernity, largely because the right is enshrined in the Constitution. So I'm doing that, and I had more than one person walk by and slap me on the shoulder and said, "Man, I'm so glad to see somebody doing this with their kid." More than one of those was, man, I wish my granddad had talked to me like this. I'm like, oh, come on, guys, come on. I'm 44. It's my 10-year-old. This is not my boy's boy. But fair play. I 4 kids in the desert war. Shit happens. I get it. Anyway, so that is the kind of conversation that you need to be having with your kids, guys. Okay? The schools are your enemy. The teachers' unions are your enemy. They hate you and want you to die. They want to take your children away from you and see you Charlie Kirked. And your children need to know that. They need to understand that. So as we look at the legislation as it's coming out, and I am going to have to wrap this up in just a minute here and get down the road. The thing that is especially concerning here is not just that they're threatening to ban firearms. This is another one of those. Remember old Barack Obama. Nobody wants to take your guns away. We're just asking for common sense firearms reform and control and oversight. Common sense safety regulations. The Virginia Democrats are pushing forward a piece of legislation that bans all assault weapons. And it defines assault weapon as a semi-automatic weapon which can accommodate a magazine of more than 10 rounds. Understand what that means, right? Yes, you grab an AR-15, the standard magazine. It infuriates me. High capacity, 30 rounds. Shut the fuck up. A 30-round magazine is not high capacity. A 30-round magazine is standard capacity. I ain't never pointed a 10-round magazine at an Afghani terrorist. All right? I ain't never killed an Al-Qaeda agent with a 10-round magazine in my M4 or M16. I ain't never put a 10-round magazine in any of my M4s or M16s. And I likely won't. Because it's a 10-round magazine. So I'm why? Right? When I put a pound of bacon on the griddle, it is not because I wanted to eat a half a pound of bacon. When I bought the griddle, it is not because I wanted a griddle that could not accommodate a pound of bacon. I bought a griddle that could accommodate a pound of bacon. I'm going to cook a pound of bacon. Same thing with a magazine. It's meant for a 30-round magazine, and that's what it's going to get. Right? If I need more than 30 rounds in my weapon, well, that's what a crew serve is for. For a belt fed. Shut the fuck up. But that means that under this legislation, if you have, let's say you have a compact, you have something like an LCP, a light compact pistol, right? Smith & Wesson, Ruger, whatever, LCP, 9mm, right? It's got a little, you got a little 7-round or 9-round magazine that it comes with as a standard, right? It's possible. It could even be the case that you have an off-brand small 9mm pistol, just a basic semi-auto pistol, and there is no manufacturer who makes a larger than 11-round magazine that could go in that. Right? It could be the case that the market does not offer a 12-round magazine for your particular firearm. But because the receiver can accept a magazine theoretically of up to and including infinite length, because the only limitation is how the top of the magazine marries to the magazine well. That means that literally every firearm that takes a magazine and has a semi-automatic function is defined as an assault weapon under this legislation. That means that what Virginia is moving to do is to ban every firearm that is not either a pump-action shotgun, a bolt-action rifle, or a revolver. Okay? I mean, what do you do? What do you do when the law says you can only carry a revolver and nothing else? That's what you do. Only revolvers from now on. Okay. Only revolvers from now on. That's how we're living our lives now. Okay. I'll see your revolver. Now, personally, I'm a wheel gun guy. I do carry, my daily carry is a revolver. It's a .357 Magnum, and it fits in the palm of my hand. Which, palm of my hand. There. Context. That's right, crack shot. Patrick says Taurus judge. Yeah, fair play. Actually, I'll tell you what though, the rubber bullet grenades that go in, that you could put in this thing, I like that. Oh yeah. Yeah, you gotta wind that one up though. Sergeant Major says revolver doesn't leave as much evidence. That is 100% true. And I am not ever going to admit on air that may be one of the reasons I carry a revolver. I carry a revolver because it's reliable. When you pull the trigger, it puts a round in the bad guy. It works. It works when you use it. So, all right, guys, I got to go ahead and wrap it up there. It is going to be cold this weekend. Stay warm, stay safe. Okay, if you can, stay off the roads. I am not going to follow my own advice, unfortunately. Excuse me, there's just too much money in the trip. So, hopefully I get in and out and done and gone before the snow gets nasty tomorrow morning. But you guys out there, don't drive drunk, don't fry bacon naked. Suit up and be safe. We love you, and we will see you tomorrow evening. We'll be back with the deep dive again tomorrow night. So y'all be safe out there. Right, guys.